What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to Redemption with Jaden. This week, I'm going to start out with a little story about a week ago. It was Thursday, and I was, a little bit. Well, I guess all of last week, I was. I wouldn't say frantically, but I was just kind of, talking around to different people, trying to see, hey, who might be going to the Thomas J. Chambers Memorial Tournament this coming weekend, or well, it was this past weekend, but it was this coming weekend relative to last week when I was talking to people and trying to figure out who might be going from around my area. There was some thought about, or potential, I guess, for one of the guys in my group to be able to go from Twin Cities, and that would have been nice, having two drivers to make a little road trip there. And because the problem was I wasn't thinking I was going to be able to go until after work on Friday, and I didn't really want to drive the whole way by myself. And so leading up through the week, I was talking to people, asking around. The eventually the guy from my group, Joe, he wasn't able to make it work for the weekend. And so I was talking to people in Wisconsin or Iowa, or seeing kind of who might be kind of going in the same general direction that we might be able to at least carpool for a little while. And I was fairly unsuccessful in my endeavors to ask around and or to see if anyone else was interested, which meant that as I got to Thursday, about a week ago, I was kind of on the fence about whether or not I wanted to go. And I was like, I don't know. I'd have to, work an 8-hour day and then drive 9 hours after that. That seems like a tall order. Not sure if I really want to go through all that. And I was thinking Thursday night. I was actually talking to another friend of mine, non-redemption related, but just saying like, yeah, I'm not sure if I want to go or not. And then he brought up the fact that it was the daylight savings fallback on Sunday, and I was kind of like, you know what? Yeah, even if I do go and I come drive back on Sunday, I'm gonna have an extra hour of sleep. And so I was kind of thinking, I was a little more like I hadn't resigned to not going. Like Thursday during the day, I was kind of like, yeah, I shouldn't go, and be a little irresponsible. And but then kind of Thursday night and into Friday, I guess I was thinking Friday at work. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna have all my stuff packed up. I got my oil changed on Thursday night, and I was like, let's just decide at some point during the day whether I'm gonna leave from work to go to Michigan or just go home. And I decided, well, pretty much right before as I was done with work, I was still on the fence. And so as I left work, I was just like, all right, I'm going to start driving. If I, start feeling sleepy or whatever within the first hour or so, I'll just turn around and go home. I actually felt pretty good. I listened to an audiobook. It was pretty interesting. And actually, I talked to my friend that I had talked to before for a little bit during the car ride. And, it actually ended up being a pretty smooth ride, and all went well. I arrived in Michigan around 3 a.m. Saturday morning. Of course, Michigan time, different from Central Time, and where I started. And then I was up and ready to play. Well, I slept in my car as after I got there, which was a little bit chilly and a little uncomfortable. I was kind of expecting it to not be quite like I've taken naps in my car before, and it's not too bad. It's got a little center console that flips up, and so I can sit across the front seat kind of. But yeah, anyways, it was a little uncomfortable after a few hours of sleeping there, and that's pretty much all it was. It was a few hours in my sleeping bag and blanket, kind of bundled up in my car. So I got in around, or I came in around 7:38 on Saturday morning, and then people started waking up and showing up from the hotel and that they were staying at and all that. And yeah, it was we got going, and it was not the the biggest turnout. We were kind of hoping for a few more people, especially given, the awesome prizes that were available and everything. But we still had a pretty good competitive crowd, and I was pretty thrilled about that at least. And also Thursday night, I received a Discord message from Jeremy Chambers asking if I was coming to the weekend. It was either Thursday or maybe it was Wednesday, but I was a little. Yeah, I was telling him like, yeah, probably not. I have to work on Friday, and then I'd have to drive and be by myself and all that. But I'm still on the fence. There's still a chance. And he was when I said probably not, he was kind of like, oh, bummer. Like I had a deck that I think you would appreciate. And sure enough, I was like, oh, is it Posties something? Or it's got to be. And yeah, sure enough, it was his Posty Joshua list with an Edomite defense, and I was like, oh, you know what? If I come, I want to play that deck. And he was like, yeah, sure. He was bringing a few decks with him. That wasn't the one he was planning to play on Saturday, so. The one that I was bringing with me was the one from the tournament the previous weekend that we had in Minnesota, which where I used most of like Tyler's kind of warrior Joshua offense with this kind of small Edomite defense, and so that's what I was ended up using, and so I'm gonna do a little bit of a recap through that deck and some of the things that maybe I would change a little bit. I'm gonna maybe adapt it for my own purposes at some point for a video. I think like it just seems like a fun uh, combination, and I think the Joshua elements kind of help add a little bit to the maybe what the posties are missing. I don't know. There's posties have kind of fallen out of the spotlight in the last couple of years here, in part I think because of the territory class limitation, and or it's kind of got overshadowed a bit by some of the GOC stuff once that kind of started being more fleshed out, and people were getting on that. So anyways, before we get into the decks from the tournament, which Baboony Tim very graciously put together and posted on the deck database on Land of Redemption, and also, of course, thanks to Jay for collecting the lists and sending them over to Tim to have them recorded. I think that's pretty sweet. We have all of the lists from Type 1 2 player in the tournament, which granted was only 9, but they are all posted on this kind of deck database article here. So if you go to decks and then deck database, then you can find TJC Memorial 2024 tournament deck lists. And yeah, he's got them all in order of how they're posted, and yeah, you can take a look. But before we get into that, I do want to talk about the prizes and everything that was offered for this tournament. Very generous prize support, so shout out to all those who kind of helped make that happen. Chris Hill was a big part of it, making the Win-A-Box part of the tournament possible, where each winner, or the winner of each category played on Saturday, received a box of Israel's Inheritance. So as you can see, Josh Potratz, he got first place in the Type 1 2 player. He also got first place in sealed deck, so he won 2 boxes. I managed to get first place in booster draft, and so that was pretty fun. And I got a box as well. If you want to see us opening those boxes, you can check out the live videos on my channel. There's about a 12-minute video of Mitch, Josh, Jeremy, and myself, each of us all opening an Israel's Inheritance box, digging for some foils, and not to spoil it too much, but you might want to go check it out. It was a fun little video that we did from the hotel that we had stayed at Saturday night after the tournament, and yeah. So, anyways, you can check that out. Those boxes were supplied by Chris Hill, so shout out to him for supporting the tournament in that way. Also, the tournament was sponsored by Covenant Games. John put together and provided the playmats and the tokens for the tournament, the Heavenly Host tokens. Unfortunately, the Heavenly Host tokens did not get there in time, or there's some delay with those, so they were not available at the tournament, but we will get to see them at some point. They'll be shipped out, I believe, to the participants who were there, the players who were there. So looking forward to seeing what those look like this year. I think he's got something different, and I don't have the playmat with me, unfortunately. You can see I'm in a different environment than usual. I'm a dog dad this week, so I don't have the playmat with me, unfortunately, but it does look pretty sweet. I guess I'll have to have it in a future video, or maybe I guess I probably have a picture of it. I'll maybe put that up right over here so you can see that just briefly here. The playmat looks sweet, very vibrant and very simple, but yet a good memorial style playmat of just kind of represent or remembering the tournament, what was it about, and all that kind of stuff. So very awesome playmat. Shout out to John for doing that. And then also the tournament was sponsored by Your Turn Games, which is also a sponsor of this channel. So the winner of each category also got to pick out an ultra rare from Your Turn Games. Of course, unfortunately, he limited it to non-foil ultra rares, but from any rotation ultra rare that he had in stock, so I picked up an extra 3 woes to replace the one that I traded away at the tournament from the previous weekend, and that kind of worked out well. So let's just give a quick shout out here to Your Turn Games, sponsor of this channel, as well as the Thomas J. Chambers Memorial second annual memorial tournament this year. I mean, he's sponsored last year's as well, but yeah, give a shout out to Your Turn Games if you want to get yourself new boxes or singles or pre-built decks or card supplies like sleeves and some of the fancy playmats. I don't think they have any available from the Thomas J. Chambers, but they have their own playmats and stuff with some of the card art. Those are all pretty sweet, so go ahead and check them out and give them some business. They are kind of the community, so we like to be kind to them. So shout out to Andy and Kelsey over at Your Turn Games. All right, so I'm going to go through just all of the deck lists like fairly quickly, just so we can see what was being played. I might talk about some of the games I played against some of these decks, and then I will go into a little more detail about the deck that I was playing personally. So let's just let's zoom in a little bit on these lists. So you can see this is Josh's clay and black gray deck, so fairly similar to his Nationals deck, if I remember correctly. At least the offense looks pretty familiar, and the defense, I can't remember if he was playing Harrods or if he was on black gray stuff, but yeah, very similar style deck, just kind of that GOC offense, and then I think what he was going for with the defense was like the kind of infinite Temple Guards Goliath play, where Temple Guards you can play Tenants Kill the Sun, and then if you ban 2 Goliath, it'll kick out all their heroes. But I guess first Goliath will negate ban, draw, and play abilities, so he negates the play on Temple Guard, which pops Tenants Kill the Sun back to your hand. But you still get to withdraw their heroes. They present a new one, and then Tenants Kill the Sun discards the hero in battle that they presented. And they have special initiative, but it has to be something that can target Tenants Kill the Sun. So something, I guess, like an interrupt the battle or something, and then also remove it from your hand, because that's where it is right now. It's kind of a wonky way that special initiative works against an enhancement that is no longer in play, but that is the ruling, I guess. So that's kind of the little combo that he was using on defense there. And then also pretty much the only new thing he added, or I guess 2 new things he added, Woman of Thebes along with Not Among You in reserve. So Woman of Thebes is kind of the new Uzza, basically, from the new old Uzza from the Faith of Our Fathers set, where it's kind of just a chump block that pretty much everyone included in their deck, because you could just discard him and protect Lost Souls from rescue, So basically, it was a free block unless your opponent had something that could like negate the last evil character. That's kind of why the spears weapon was printed in LOC, was like almost entirely for Uzza, also a little bit for like Deceiver and that kind of stuff. But Uzza basically is now the one of Thebes, where you can give her to your opponent and protect lost souls from rescue. The caveat, I guess, is that now your opponent has the potential to use her against you, but she doesn't necessarily give herself. She just gives your Canaanite. So if you don't own and control the woman of Thebes that you have, then you can't give her to your opponent. But if your opponent gives you a woman of Thebes, you can block with her, give your opponent, say, your foreign wives or your other Canaanite evil character that you have, and then you can just let one of Thebes die by the numbers, and you're still protecting lost souls. She also takes an OT black card, I think, from reserve. Maybe it's enhancement, but Not Among You is a good one for that, because if they somehow, maybe they play awesome things to negate Woman of Thebes somehow, because she is still in territory. So awesome things to play Joshua's command, for instance. I think this is actually an exact scenario that played out in our game. Maybe it wasn't my game against Josh, but it was. I think maybe it was, but playing awesome things to negate one with Thebes. Oh yeah, it was against Josh. I negated one with Thebes, tried to discard her. Unfortunately, that did put Not Among You back in reserve, so I guess that aspect of it doesn't quite work, but he did have Stricken, unfortunately, to negate or to negate Joshua's command, basically undo what I tried to do and re-protect the lost souls. Of course, I didn't have another way to play an enhancement, so that was good enough for the block. And but I think that taking something from reserve, taking Not Among You, is probably the best one, because if I don't know, having a way to negate other enhancements is kind of nice when enhancements can be used to stop whatever one of Thebes is trying to do. And also, it's just good on Goliath. So if you get the one of Thebes block, you take Not Among You from reserve, then you have that available for next turn when maybe you want to block with Goliath. And so a lone Goliath with Not Among You is pretty solid. Especially then if your opponent controls a Canaanite, because then you're only negating good enhancements with Not Among You. So the offense, I don't think I really have to explain too much about, but the other kind of new card, the third, I think, yeah, the only of the three new cards that, let me start that over. Josh only added 3 new cards to the deck, 3 Israel's Inheritance cards, and the third one is the Disoriented Lost Soul, which is the if put in play negated card. While it remains in play, you select a card and it's negated while it remains in play. He said that it pretty much flopped all day until the game against me. He attacks me turn 1 with Matthew. I think he gets 3 or 5 or something like that. Not very many. I think it was 3, yeah, because I discarded Ezra to my Prosperity that took teal out of my hand, so it was just gold, red, and crimson. And so he attacks me with Matthew. He gets to draw 3. He had put down Ends of the Earth before battle. And unfortunately, fortunately, I had a Moths block, so I was like, oh, he used a draw ability, I had Moths in hand. Hopefully this will be good enough for a block. And I figured he was probably playing awesome things, probably, playing 3 woes, of course. So figured that, there's a chance if he had one of the Doms, maybe, he'd get something. But he saw my hand, and I didn't have anything, at least I think maybe he saw my hand. I didn't have any other enhancements to play or anything. Maybe he didn't see my hand, but, well, yeah, he saw my hand with Matthew, of course. So anyways, but he saw that I had Moths. It was kind of too late for him to do anything about it at that point, but he was able to add Ends of the Earth to battle, looked at his top 7, and Disoriented was in there, and I was like, oh, come on, like the one card that would have done anything off of the ends of the earth to stop moths from working. So disoriented came in play. I was able to negate moths. I didn't have any way to stop it. I had second coming in hand, and I was like, well, I'm not gonna second coming to Son of God in deck for to get the block there. There's potential for maybe that's worth it in some cases, especially given the deck that I was playing and kind of the defensive nature of it. But I did end up having to use Second Coming to Crowd's Choice to Christian Martyr for a block way later in the game. So that was a little unfortunate, but so there was also I kind of put a little mental asterisk next to my game against Josh because Josh ended up winning the game 4-3. We timed out, and as we were timing out, though, there was a little confusion or kind of miscommunication, I guess, around kind of how the round the end of round should be handled. And so our game was called a round early by kind of what uh, they should have called, or that was kind of how it was decided after, like when it was they were conferring, and so I was like, oh man, I feel like I should have gotten another turn, and I think I would have been able to have one more block against Josh, and I think I would have been able to get through his defense because he had kind of made him use everything that he had left. And so I think that the game should have been 4-4, should have been a tie, but here we are. The what the judge called at the time was what we had to play by. So that was a little unfortunate, but I'm not too disappointed. I don't think it would have made too much of a difference as far as my placing. Like maybe I guess maybe I get fourth ahead of Jay. I can't remember exactly what our scores ended up being. I think we were tied at the end in score. So, but it's not really I'm not too salty about it. Just wanted to clarify, put that out there, be like, my because I think it is kind of important to see the kind of deck that I was playing, which was more Israel's Inheritance focused against a GOC deck, and like actually seeing it hang in there. So speaking of that matchup, let's go to second place. Jeremy Chambers. He was playing his Impartial Judgment kind of gospel offense with a Thieves defense. So this is another fairly similar deck to one that he had been playing last season or kind of toward the end of last year. This is one that John Early took and played at the Minnesota State tournament. Did pretty well with that, and it was a deck that, well, I guess I had it built, and then John was the one who played it. But I was like, oh, this is cool. It's a deck using Impartial Judgment, and it is pretty neat. Basically, his goal is just to make a whole bunch of tokens with his offense, draw a whole bunch of cards. Then on turn two, he's got a whole bunch of tokens that he can then utilize Impartial Judgment with. It's probably not the right way to say. He can utilize Impartial Judgment alongside all of these tokens to basically wipe out your entire defense. He can bounce most of your evil characters with the Empty Tomb, or like pretty much up to 4 on the turn by moving Resurrection Revealer in and out of Chamber of Angels. So Empty Tomb lets you bounce evil characters when you put an Empty Tomb hero in play. So against me, we played in round 1. I was actually feeling pretty good. I had like I think 4 evil cards in my hand, and I had 2 characters in play. I kind of forgot about the Empty Tomb bouncing thing, and I was like, you know what? Even if he does Impartial Judgment and hit the 4 in my hand, I actually still feel pretty good about my blocking odds because I had like King of Edom and some other evil character in play, to where I was like, well, even if he does that, I think I can still block. I can probably even negate Impartial Judgment. But of course, yeah, the Empty Tomb thing, he had pretty much all the pieces in place already. He had drawn so many cards between turn 1 and then Star of Bethlehem, and yeah, he just kind of got the the stuff that he needed. Crowd's choice, I think, to Chamber of Angels, and so he got all the tokens in play and whatever. So yeah, he had 8 meek heroes by the time he played Impartial Judgment, and he was able to bounce both naval characters, so I was completely wiped out. Given that, I was actually still able to almost stabilize in the game. I think I was maybe 1 block away, or maybe 2 blocks, but I kind of messed 1 block up where I had forgotten that I put Foreign Wives into the main deck because I had switched a few things with the deck that I was using, which was Jeremy's deck, like I mentioned. He didn't initially have Foreign Wives in there, and I was like, yeah, I feel like she should be, and especially if people were playing decks like this, the GOC kind of stuff, and so I was like, we're gonna have her in here. At first, I was thinking I would put her in reserve, but I ended up swapping out something in the reserve, putting something from the main deck over there, and then Foreign Wives into the main deck, and I just completely brain farted on that. I blocked the Deceiver, I grabbed the reserve right away, and I was like, oh, she's in the main deck. Oh my goodness, like I was kind of upset about that, or just upset with myself that I didn't just check my reserve first, because I even thought about it. I was like, oh, I should look, and I just, yeah. So anyways, that'll happen, especially if you're not used to the deck you're playing. So don't be like me and play a deck in a tournament that you've never played before. It's usually not the best, or at least have done like goldfishes with, or even one that you've built yourself. Usually that's going to be the better way for you to remember what cards are in your deck if you built it yourself. But that's okay. I wanted to play the deck, and I was having fun with it regardless. So I messed up that block, and I think I might have been able to kind of slowly come back if we had more time, because we finished pretty much right at time. Jeremy won 5-3. I was able to I think I got both dominants, so I believe I got one rescue through, but I think I might have been able to kind of keep going. So you can see like his enhancements are pretty light here. He's got Hypocrisy and Pilfer, and I believe I made him use both of them. I don't know if he got to reserve for his defense, but yeah, it was yeah, he discarded Barabbas pretty early, so I don't think he had any other ways to get stuff out of there. So I think I would have been in good shape to kind of to get in and maybe not win the game given enough time, but I could have at least gotten pretty close, maybe tied it up 4-4 or something before time ran out if I had gotten that block. I don't know. But anyways, it was another fun game. I had a good time actually like trying to hang in there, and it was a little bit of a puzzle with the defense, but it gives me hope, I guess, for the kind of Israel's inheritance themes, particularly Joshua and Edomites, like their decks or like themes that have kind of shown themselves to hang in there at least somewhat with these GOC decks. And of course, you can see Josh and Jeremy both took first and second, so it kind of shows us a little bit of like the GOC stuff is still going to be stronger in general, but also Josh and Jeremy are just very good players, so them being at the top isn't terribly surprising. But next up we have in third place Mark Valake. He brought this Prophet Black Soulhide build, and you can see it's fairly similar to the deck that I had on the channel just a couple weeks ago, I think. I think he probably built it and played it a little bit better than what I had, because Mark is kind of a known Soulhide player. That's kind of been part of his repertoire for a little bit now, because he and Jalissa, his wife, won teams with their Sadducee Soulhide decks in whatever year that was, not this past year, but the year before, 2023. Weird. Okay. Anyways, so Soulhide, he was no stranger to Soulhide, and I don't know if if this is a list that he's been kind of working on for a while, or kind of who he's been talking to about it, or I doubt he based it off of my list, because yeah, he'd probably kind of had this going, or this idea for for a bit, maybe talking to Jay, because I know Jay's been looking at it a little bit too. And I think that this is actually fairly uh, worrisome, or like it's a deck that you should at least know about and be familiar with. And I don't know if necessarily building with it in mind, but just build like kind of knowing that it's there, and making sure that your deck has at least something like some ways to generate lost souls, maybe that aren't necessarily counting on being able to play them from your opponent's deck, or having your lost souls or hopper to make tokens. So yeah, it's a fairly strong deck, very like solid deck. I think Prophets lack a little bit of kind of that first turn acceleration and kind of getting set up, but this is the kind of deck that maybe you don't necessarily need that. If your opponent has a good turn one, maybe gets off the ground a little bit faster, but you can get to kind of a lock state by before they get three, or maybe even once they get three, it's not even doesn't even matter if they have their dominance, because you can hide the lost souls and they can't, they don't have an answer. Then you're going to be in pretty good shape. So it's a deck about getting Storehouse down to protect your deck from opponents, from searching or shuffling your deck, getting Moses down to negate their lost souls and some other neutral, or well, I guess territory class like lost soul gen stuff. So negating their hopper, their lost souls, lost soul, and any territory class enhancements that might play lost souls or something like that. Or negate your Storehouse so that they can use a different soul gen piece. So you want to get those down early, and then I think in my version I was using Jacob as well, the territory class Cloud of Witnesses version that protects, and I think that's like that. I'd maybe have to talk to Mark about it, but kind of get his thoughts after actually playing this deck for however many rounds we played for, I think. Um, and so or did we play 5? We played min +1, which I guess with 9 would be 5. Yeah, that sounds right. So after actually getting some good reps in with the deck, like, do you think Jacob would be better, or people only getting your Storehouse and actually getting through, kind of having that extra layer of protection, that'd be worth it? So it'll be something to consider, because he still works through Moses, which is nice because he's a cloud hero. So anyway, that's this is a deck that you have to kind of be, or I guess once it sets up, then you might be in trouble if you're not able to kind of deal with the pieces. Maybe you have to kind of do them one at a time, or kind of strategically at the right time, so that you can get these lost souls back, because otherwise, Mark's going to play Harvest Time, get all the lost souls out. He's going to play Burial to put them all at the bottom of the deck, and then you're just going to be in trouble for the rest of the game, while he just kind of surgically gets through by using like Vow for Samuel and Jeremiah and stuff to whittle down your defense and get through eventually. So that was Mark's third place deck. I don't know his record exactly, but yeah, he ended up in third. So well done there. Next up is Jay's Joshua and Black Gray defense here. So, or it's Joshua offense, Black Gray defense. So he played a fairly, I don't know if I can call it standard yet, because there's not been a whole lot of Joshua out or tested yet, but I think a kind of a good goalpost, I guess, for Joshua decks that are trying, or in particular, his version is trying to do the Promised Land loop stuff, where you've got Shrine to Artemis to shuffle it back into your deck, and then Joshua's Covenant to pull it out right away. You can put Joshua's Covenant in Book, and then Book into the Tabernacle, wherever that is, and then the Tabernacle is an extra place to hold artifacts or hold Book, so that you can have Shrine active in your artifact pile and just keep getting your Promised Land back that way. And then Tabernacle also doubles as a way to get Lost Child Found back from discard pile, or to get it from reserve. And so by attacking with the Tabernacle Priest, you can get Lost Child Found back. This was something I showed in one of the, was it the first II deck that I built, I think, or I showed on the channel, where yeah, I think I built the deck and then wanted to actually try it out in a game, so I got some gameplay in with it, and yeah, it was pretty fun. I enjoyed the building of it, the playing of it, and I think Jay did a great job of putting the finishing touches, so to speak, on that sort of offense. And he's got the Medad in here, basically, and I was using the four living creatures as my other hero that could play Lost Child Found. Medad is a much better option because he's fits more within the theme. The protection from four living creatures is kind of nice, and the bounce ability itself is kind of nice. But you can use Lost Child Found to bounce Medad if you need that unity, and Medad exchanges for a wilderness hero, so you can go and get most of your offense, which is pretty good. So Jay also had Builder's Sword in there to help mitigate some of the soul hide strategies people are running, or soul protection strategies. So one of Thebes, Moabite stuff, and the soul hide deck that Mark was playing, and I'm sure it helped a bit in that matchup. And he's also running Faith of Joshua as another way to get Promised Land and get stuff out early, kind of accelerate the offense. So yeah, I think this is a very good Joshua build. It's fairly compact, which is nice, but you don't really need a whole lot when you're just stealing all of your opponent's stuff. So this is if you're looking for a way to build and to play Joshua, I would definitely check out this list. And the defense, I think, was also somewhat creative, or it's not something that we've seen a whole lot of before, which is kind of this black-gray combination, but instead of New Testament stuff, it's pretty much all Old Testament stuff. He does still have Emperor Augustus in here to have the Denarius acceleration, but otherwise it's Balaam, some of the Moabite packages, or I guess the sort of Moabite package where you got Moab to King Balak to Balaam, and you can just once you get one of them, you've got once you've got Moab, you've got all three of them, and you don't even have to use your territory class enhancement or anything. So he's using those. The unconsenting king, I believe, is this one, and then the one with Thebes kind of chump block there. So it's really about using the subdued lost soul, or kind of utilizing the difficulty of trying to manipulate or I guess prevent the subdued lost soul from shuffling away all the lost souls. And then it's got a couple of enhancements in here to help the strategy along as well, along with Glory of the Lord and Grapes of Wrath to kind of work both ways, be flexible for offense and defense. And one thing I like about his Joshua offense here is the inclusion of Angel of God. I think that Joshua offenses, I'm fairly confident they should be running Angel of God, especially in this version, because I think one of the cute things that I didn't really realize or think about until he did it against me was he can use Angel of God during a battle to negate something that I played, and then in discard phase, after he had gotten Lost Child Found back with the Tabernacle, you can play Lost Child Found to bounce Angel of God back to hand before doing the going to your next turn and in upkeep losing Angel of God. Just completely lost my train of thought there. And a couple of the other kind of interesting or notable inclusions, I think, for Jay's deck is this Eternal Covenant and Reserve. Joshua doesn't really seem to have too many ways to recur heroes. You could previously recur Captain of the Host or Joshua by using the Victorious Being, but Captain is no longer a prophet by redemption standards, so the Victorious Being can't go to discard anymore. So since Book of the Covenant is in the deck, having Eternal Covenant in here to resurrect heroes is kind of nice, because this is, you can see, he's only got 8 heroes in the main deck, so losing any kind of sizable portion of those would be fairly devastating for the deck, or for the offense. Rahab and Medad by themselves aren't really going to get it done. Stone Carriers is there to exchange, so it's fairly slim as far as the heroes that he actually wants to be attacking with. And utilizing. So that is yeah, that's Jay's deck that he took fourth place with. He and I didn't get to play Mark, so I didn't talk about that. I did get to play Jay in the very last round, and it was kind of a interesting sort of back and forth game, but Jay was pretty much in control for like the majority of the game. He got the promised land stuff alive or rolling early, but I was able to kind of use his offense a little bit and kind of at least stay in the game. And I was able to get a few clutch blocks kind of in the last couple turns there that saved me from getting a full loss against Jay, and also kind of then prevented him from hopping Mark and getting into third place, I believe. And so you know, felt good about my deck and the defense's ability to perform, but it was kind of an interesting game where I think Jay was thinking there were probably some things that he could have done differently that he was thinking about afterwards that would have kind of secured the full win, because I think he was in control for most of the game, and then it was hard to kind of then close it off. So maybe that's something to consider for the deck. Like, are there any changes that might make the deck a little bit more of a have that more of an ability to close? That's something that I was kind of wondering with like Shrine to Artemis and some of the other plays that the Joshua offense can do around Promised Land. Like, it's good, but is it uh, too fragile, I guess, where, maybe it's not going to be as effective at, kind of closing things out. I don't know, something to consider. So anyways, that was fourth place, and fifth place is the Posty Joshua Edomite deck that I was running under Jeremy's construction, I guess, or Jeremy had put this together. I did make a few changes just before the tournament. So, for example, Jeremy had Jail's Nail in there. I put Joshua's Command in there instead as kind of a strict, upgrade or direct upgrade that also worked with Joshua's Covenant. And then he also had Zerubbabel's Plumb Line in there, which I swapped out with Teaching in Parables. I'll talk a little bit more about this deck in particular in a bit, so bear with me. But it was a fun deck to play. I really enjoyed the Edomite defense, and then kind of getting all the posty feels again, because it had been a while since I got to use them. So anyways, sixth place, Mitch Stewart came out from Iowa, and he ran, I believe, a deck that was Jay's build of David's Mighty Men, but he did have some kind of interesting inclusions in here with a few of the disciples, or two of the disciples. He had John and Peter in here. Peter for some acceleration with 4 drachma coin, and John is, I think, a solid inclusion in a deck like this that has King Jehu, because you can do your banning chain. If you have a way to end it with banning to King Jehu, then Jehu can just exchange for John and get the toss and the draw too. Just fairly strong. So it's I think kind of the way that he would be looking to do it is to have King Jehu be equipped, and then his other dudes be equipped, so that Abishai can ban to both, and then he can get the kind of 2 branches of the chain in there. And getting the extra speed plus the toss, just fairly strong, especially when you're doing all the weapons already and getting all those effects. So I think the deck, or in theory, is strong as a concept. I think it's a little bit tricky to get it all together, and then also to keep it together. That's kind of the tightrope thing you gotta walk. It's a little bit more of a technical deck where it's like, okay, what weapon do I need right now? What order do I need to put them in? I think that stuff like 20 shekels really would fit well in this deck. I kind of mentioned that with the deck that I was playing at the Minnesota tournament, and I talked about that last week as one of the things that I would definitely change is putting 20 shekels in the deck, because not only does it help you kind of move around your weapons a little bit by bouncing heroes that are equipped, but also it just helps you to figure out kind of what sequence you need, which heroes you actually need to bring into battle. Do I need the one that negates enhancements or the one that negates characters or both? What weapons do I put in what order? So I keep bumping things. But yeah, so it is kind of tricky to get it all together. And I do think that there are good, Purple Warrior decks that can compete. I think it's just kind of a matter of figuring out, is that more focused on Benaya perhaps, doing the lone stuff with the weapons and getting some value there, kind of figuring out how you can make that deck fast enough. That's something that I do want to try out and kind of see if I can figure out. But or is it, something more where it's combined with like a little some Joshua pieces, or is it something similar to this but just with a few tweaks, where still has the acceleration from 4 Drachma Coin and Peter and the John stuff. So yeah, I think a very solid deck, and there are some definite advantages, or the things to this deck that stand out as like, okay, I can see why this is strong. He played a Herod's defense, so it's kind of hard to go wrong there. But yeah, I think some people are kind of getting Herod's figured out a little bit because it was so big last year, where you already know that you kind of have to be prepared for it. To a certain degree, you can prepare for it. To another degree, not so much. But I think that the Herods kind of fit well because they're fairly compact and can help to get this offense off the ground a little bit, or just buy it enough time to get through. But yeah, I did play against Mitch, and unfortunately, it was a little bit back and forth at first, but I just had the right answers on defense to deal with his offense and really keep him from getting the pieces together that he needed too quickly, I guess. Like, Abishai is good, but he's not cannot be negated. So if I had something, or I had Hey Dad there to negate heroes and enhancements, then I was able to slow down some of the stuff that he did, and ultimately just kind of have the answers at the right times, and I was able to get through most of his defensive stuff, like the Joshua and yeah, I guess posties a bit too. They fared well against the Herod's defense. I was able to deal with his Herod's Temple and kind of mitigate some of the other blocks that he had. So good game there, but yeah, I was able to take that one. So Mitch ended up in 6th place. Now we had Brandon Swango, who was able to come up from Indiana. I didn't get to bring Andy with him this time, but he played a Joshua Thieves deck, which is, it looks fairly similar to the deck that I had built. I built my Joshua slightly differently. You can see there's no Rahab or Lost Child Found, kind of like Promised Land looping stuff. So I think this is maybe a little more of like a cookie cutter Joshua offense, where it's just kind of, all right, here's the best cards from Israel's Inheritance, putting them together in the theme, and then the Thieves defense, pretty straightforward. He's got a great image in reserve, which is kind of spicy, and if you get wages, you can kind of surprise somebody with that. So it's a very balanced deck, and very kind of I would call it like a sturdy deck, where it's balanced, and maybe the dominants are definitely kind of leaning offensive heavy, but I think Thieves are able to hold their own quite a bit, and so yeah, I think that Joshua Thieves is just kind of a fun, natural pairing, and they work together well. And Brandon, he didn't have probably as much success with them as he had wanted, but I mean, hey, it was a pretty stacked small tournament, so I think it still did him well enough to feel satisfied, I guess, with the performance. I can't really speak for him on that, but he and I did get to play one game, and the Banished Lost Soul, along with some of the other Banished stuff that I had with the Edomites, really shined in this game, where I was able to get off to a pretty quick start of banishing his stuff and really benefiting from it. I did get to draw 6 off of avoiding Edom, which was it felt pretty good. Had a got to banish his stuff and then draw up to the limit on that one. So um, yeah, he ended up having to Son of God or Second Coming, sorry, to go to deck to Son of God to rescue Banished during an attack that he didn't want to. I mean, I guess for one, probably lose his reserve, but also um, he didn't want, or he wanted to bring back some of the cards that had been banished during that battle. So that was kind of a desperation move, and it was just hard to come back from kind of that early momentum that I had with the Banished Lost Soul and some of the defensive stuff I was doing, which was kind of fun. Like I enjoyed seeing or being able to do that, like having kind of a defensive momentum, or like my blocks were getting me or generating me value, and so yeah, that was kind of cool. Something that you don't see super often in the current meta, but I think the way that some of these new themes are set up, they're not necessarily stopping you from playing evil enhancements. So you actually, you're going to have some more battles against some of the new themes, I think, unless they're, looping Promised Land and taking 3 cards from your hand before you attack. But, that's kind of another story. So, um, all right. Zach Burnham was also able to make it, the Jambi on Discord, and he played another kind of version of David's Mighty Men. He was using Benaiah. He was very much more focused on the actual Mighty Men. You could see in the deck that Mitch was playing, it was more kind of sprinkled in with some of the new stuff and old stuff. So he had David and Jehoshaphat and Joshua the Conqueror, that kind of stuff. So it was a little bit of that kind of red stuff seeping in. Here, Zach was kind of just all in basically on Mighty Men. He's got Mephibosheth in there to do some exchanging, but otherwise pretty straightforward, getting the Mighty Men in there and ready to rumble. I do think it is a little, again, a little tough to get them going and maybe kind of accelerated. I am looking forward to trying them out in Type 2. I think that with a little bit more time to get set up and just a little more spread out, where you can actually include like pretty much all of the Mighty Men and actually get these huge banding chains together eventually. Like I think that'll be kind of fun. And so but I am glad to see that people are trying this out in Type 1, and Zach was able to do that, and then also tried out the Moabites on defense, just fairly kind of, again, cookie cutter, where taking kind of the best of the Moabites and really building within that theme. I'm glad to see Moabite camp in there. I hope that got some good blocks for him, because I feel like that's something that people just aren't expecting. But I think I would probably want to try to build around it a little bit more with like the hand control stuff. So it's like, I think one of my favorite blocks would be like Vain Philosophy to underdeck something. You see that they've got one thing left, Moabite camp, and take it out, and then maybe you can play some enhancements and do some damage if you have initiative. But yeah, I think this looks like a fun deck to play. Just to kind of good, again, like kind of cookie cutter, like I want to play Mighty Men, I want to play Moabites, boom, there it is. So glad to see that Zach put this together, had this ready to go. And then also now 9th place, Matthew. He I think only played a couple rounds. I think he was not he was feeling a little tired or whatever, but it actually kind of worked out, because or for him to step down, and then because that took out, or step out, that took out the bye. But I know that he's been excited about this deck, and I've kind of seen the list in a few different variations or steps along the way, and it seems like a pretty good and annoying deck. He's playing Disciples, but kind of the more straight up Disciples rather than kind of some of the GOC splash stuff. He does have Mary in there, so it's kind of it is the clay Disciples side of things. I know he's done some of the purple Disciple stuff before, but yeah, he was kind of more focused on clay now, which I think he maybe took him a little while, but he came around to the clay side being a little bit stronger than the purple. And then he combined it with the wilderness, brown wilderness defense from mostly IR stuff, and he's kind of got it set up to just be kind of a nuisance with the curses like wasting disease and infusion of mind, and the ways to get them out with endless treasures and Israel's rebellion and all that. So yeah, I'm glad to be able to see him and see him playing or trying out this deck. He and I have to get a game in at some point here, but he's been trying for a while, but I've just been kind of busy and not able to play games like outside of the Lackey Grand Prix online at least. So, but yeah, we'll definitely have to see this one in action at some point here. So anyways, that is all of the decks here. I don't want to spend a whole lot more time in this video because I'm already getting close to an hour here, but I do want to show off the deck that I played in a little bit more detail. So let's transition over to that, and you can see the Posty Joshua Edomites deck that Jeremy had built that I kind of tweaked a little bit to my liking, and then played in the tournament. And like, I'm no lie, like being completely genuine here, this was some of the most fun games that I've played in a while. Just like with the defense, like it's been a while since I've played a deck with like very solid defense that I actually felt like I was able to play stuff and get blocks with some of these enhancements. And I think part of it was that people weren't necessarily playing like the GOC stuff as much, or like Josh and Jeremy both were. But even then, like I think I was able to stabilize at some point during those games where like there were some attacks where they just didn't have the right stuff to just stop me from playing anything. And so I was able to actually pull off some blocks here and there, and I was able to not at least get a full loss to Josh, and I was even close to tying. And then against Jeremy, I felt like I was pretty close to holding him off, and maybe being able to catch up a little bit there. So it is a 57 card deck, so it's kind of naturally built a little bit more for that, to have a little bit more defense and not necessarily be super aggressive, but just kind of bide some time and then get there. I think I guess I kind of want to start with the defense, maybe get that out of the way, kind of some of my thoughts on the Edomites, because I'm talking about the blocking and that kind of stuff. So the one thing that Edomites have kind of been getting their horn tooted for, it's kind of a weird way to say it, but having the two play evil characters, so Charioteers of Seer and Esau the Hunter, you can play first with both of these. Unfortunately, I've been kind of disappointed with Esau, or like during the tournament, I never blocked with Esau once. It was just, well, okay, maybe there was one time. I don't think I got to use the ability though. I don't know. Basically, if Esau lets you discard an animal from hand to draw two, which contrary to Tyler's recent video, you can't do that. Which I think he probably knew that at some point, but just wasn't thinking about it at the time. But Esau lets you take an animal or Edomite from deck. It goes to your hand. Then he says, if blocking, you may discard an animal to draw two and play an OT enhancement. Unfortunately, the discard defaults to play, and so the animal that you search for, you don't get to discard in order to draw two and play. So you have to have the animal down first, which in like a more fleshed out animal defense, I think that's awesome. It's great. In this defense, I've got moths and I've got fire foxes in the main deck, and then fiery serpents in reserve. And there's I can still see an argument for Esau, especially in the 57 card version. So I think that, maybe he's okay here, but I almost think that, I don't know, at least if I was going down to 50, I think Esau, Moths, and Firefoxes would probably all come out. As much as it hurts to say, like, I mean, maybe Firefoxes would stay, maybe Moths would stay, but I don't know that I need this whole package. And I guess maybe to that end, then Fiery Serpents and Covenant with Philistia would come out as well, make some room for other stuff, and also help me cut down to 50 if I do want to make this more aggressive. Um, I think as it is, these are good for the size of the defense. There are maybe a few other things that I would want to switch around the main one that I realized maybe 2 rounds in or something. I was like, oh, Jeremy, you don't have the Terrifying Chiefs in this deck. Like, what are you doing, man? The Begrudging King, I could go without him. The one thing he did do was against Mitch, I think. Maybe it was Brandon, but I think maybe it was Brandon, where I had Begrudging King to block on the first turn. I had the Banished Lost Soul out, and then because he plays an Edomite from deck, then that's how I was able to get Unity for the Banished Lost Soul, even after he removed the Begrudging King. Like, I didn't really have a block, but I was able to block with Begrudging King, get my I think it was King of Edom down into play, or maybe it was Hadad, and or even David Servants, I suppose. Yeah, that's probably the one that I picked, just because it's the most flexible. But anyways, so then I had Unity, so that his Battle Winner got banished, and whatever other stuff that went to the discard pile got banished, um, and so that was the one use for him. But I, like, throughout the whole tournament, I would have loved if this slot was the Terrifying Chiefs instead. Of course, it didn't really have many of the CVP stuff in here other than avoiding Edom to really make use of the Terrifying Chiefs. So I'd probably also want Hypocrisy in there. But yeah, I think Begrudging King is a reserve card at best and probably not usable in most Edomite defenses. Maybe there are some where you're trying to play, like with Holy of Holies, if you're using like a priest offense or something, where you want Begrudging King, you want Charioteers, and you want Husham because they're all CBP, and then you can build the rest of the defense kind of around that as well. But yeah, that's not the direction this deck wanted to go, and so yeah, Begrudging King didn't really need him. He is beefy, which is kind of nice. So if you're, getting down to the point where you just need numbers, you can do that. But I mean, King of Edom, Hadad, Charioteers, plenty to get you there. So, anyways, Terrifying Chiefs. It's a good card, and I would have loved if that made it in the deck instead. But yeah, I didn't think about it as I was looking at the deck and making the deck list before the tournament and everything. So anyways, that would be kind of the one thing for the defense as it is, I think. If I were to go down to 50, I think I would cut these out. I would probably put like an Orphan's Lost Soul in here, because then I'm not, yeah, I don't need Moths and Firefox, or if I don't have Moths and Firefoxes, then I'm not worried about protecting Lost Souls from evil cards. And I'd rather have that available to stop like one with Thebes and that kind of stuff for my opponent. And then, yeah, I think, I'd probably swap around some of the enhancements, maybe put Hypocrisy in here to work with Terrifying Chiefs. I do like the reserve stack here. Scattered, good if they've got multiple heroes. Access Denied is good if, they have multiple heroes, or if they just have, or if they have one, then you probably just play that and get the block. If they have multiple, you play that, and then you combine it with something like, Avoiding Edom, or Scattered if you have it. The one thing that I don't like, that maybe people haven't thought about as much yet with Access Denied, is that you restrict players from playing enhancements, and then if you really want to capitalize on it, you can try to remove their heroes. But if you play something like Seized by Babylon to try to capture their heroes, it does have an interrupt the battle on it. So if you put them in special initiative, then they are going to have an opportunity to play enhancements because you're interrupting the restrict. The restrict is ongoing, so it gets interrupted by an interrupt the battle. So basically, if you do this, if they've got multiple heroes in battle, you want to use Seized by Babylon to only capture all but one of them, basically. Leave them with one hero in battle who's then just going to die by the numbers or something like that, because you don't want to give them special initiative in that window where access denied is interrupted. So, little Edomite tip there for you. I do like the reserve tricks here that he's got. Fiery Serpents and Husham both work with Glory of the Lord to take out a lot of their offense potentially. So yeah, you can paralyze their heroes, and it's not like a duration thing, so they just get decreased until they die, unless your opponent has some way to bounce them or heal them, I guess. So yeah, that Fiery Serpents might stay even if these get cut, but I also probably would cut Covenant with Philistia. So I don't know. That would be something to consider, though. I do like the combination with the animals, but it's just it's there are different ways to play Edomites, which I like, and that's one of them. And but I don't think it's necessarily the best one. So that's just my humble opinion at this point. But anyways, enough about the defense. Let's talk about the posties and some of the Joshua stuff that got added to it. So basically, you can use either Joshua with this, but I think at least what Jeremy was going for makes it kind of easier using Joshua the Conqueror. Joshua the Commander can be used, but then you rely a little bit more on Eliezer here. But what you can do is Captain of the Host. You get to do some drawing. So if you have officiators, Caleb, Joshua, Captain, you've got pretty good odds of getting to draw at least 2, probably 3 cards with Captain. Captain can ban 2 Joshua's officiators who can equip Joshua's sword, which I learned works on Joshua the Conqueror. I know. It says, if used by Joshua the Commander, you may discard a card except a character. It works on Joshua the Conqueror because it's the same Joshua, and that's kind of the idea behind putting Joshua the Commander on there, was just that it references the same Joshua, but somebody like Joshua the High Priest, which is now Jeshua the Restorer, but Joshua the High Priest would not benefit from playing Joshua's sword. So that is the fun little tidbit that I learned and while talking to Jeremy about the deck. I was like, oh, why do you have Joshua's sword in here? So anyways, you can equip Joshua's sword to Joshua the Conqueror. You get to underdeck something, you get to draw one, you get to discard something, then you get to exchange with maybe Eliezer or Nehemiah, and then they can kind of continue the chain. I guess primarily Nehemiah, because Eliezer only bans to OT human warriors, so you'd have to basically ban a Nehemiah to in order to get to the rest of the posties. But with Eliezer, then you can also go the other direction where you do Ezra to Jeshua to Zerubbabel to Eliezer, and then Eliezer can ban to an OT human warrior like Joshua, or like Joshua's officiators, and then Joshua or Caleb. I guess he could also go in the lineup at some point here to draw 2, or to make Joshua's officiators CBN or CBP, sorry. If your opponent's running like a Accuser's Lost Soul or something, which has been around, and then you can still end the chain with Joshua, and then exchange with Eliud. So you can still end with kind of the little hand control thing that posties like to do, or maybe Baton to generate Lost Souls. So very fun offense, lots of options you can do with the attack. And then basically you have to figure out, okay, how do I actually close out these attacks and rescue Lost Souls? So that's kind of where the enhancements come in, as far as kind of picking apart the options that they would have left. So, if you have Eliud to kind of whittle down on some of their defenses, then hopefully between teaching and parables and amazing faith, Joshua's command, you can take out what they have left. Most people are playing kind of smaller defenses, and that's where this offense is going to thrive. Something like this defense might struggle against a little bit, so it's something to consider. But yeah, I think if you've got a big enough defense, then it might be challenging. But that's where Angel of the Lord, Glory of the Lord, Right On, and Awesome Things come in handy to help the offense out a little bit. I would probably adjust the reserve a bit for my own, playing my own version of the deck, just because feel like these enhancements didn't really get used, and I probably want to have a little bit more punch for those bigger defenses, have a few more resources in reserve to actually be able to kind of break through some of the defenses that are more tricky. Ambush the City is okay against like Herods and that kind of stuff, but I don't know. I think the main reason I would want it is to end and re-begin a battle against Foreign Wives, and Foreign Wives is generic, so that your opponent could just block with her again. So that's actually in my game against Jay. I was attacking. I had drawn cards. He blocked with Foreign Wives. She was already in territory, so I knew that he was going to get it, but I needed the cards anyway. I was kind of hoping he was going to, think I had something and then not block with Foreign Wives. But I grabbed Ambush the City anyway, so I played Ambush the City, began a new battle, and then before he blocked, I just played Angel of the Lord on Foreign Wives, because it doesn't go through, or her protection only goes through the end of the phase, and Ambush the City begins a new battle phase. So the protection was no longer active at that point, but he would have been able to reblock with her, at which point it would have been too late for Angel of the Lord. So that is, some food for thought, I guess. Like if you're thinking about Ambush the City, if I was really worried about Foreign Wives and, Herods and other protection stuff, that's where I might be tempted to bring in Joshua the Commander. But Joshua the Commander is good for reserve access, and this deck doesn't really need it. Like posties get that through Book of the Law and through Zerubbabel's Temple. So I'm pulling these out pretty easily with those. So I don't know. That's something to think about, like putting a little bit more fuel in the reserve. Some of those new gold enhancements, I'm sure, would be solid choices. By My Spirit, I think, probably goes in the main deck here somewhere, and then something else goes in a reserve. Putting some star enhancements in there that Emmaus Road can go fetch might be kind of nice. But yeah, it was good to be playing posties again. It made me excited to actually build a version for myself, which I haven't quite gotten to do yet, but I've got a few other things cooking for deck ideas here, so I'm not sure when exactly I'll get to it, but Lackey Grand Prix 18 will be starting up pretty soon, so we're going to be having some of those ideas freshly cooked for y'all. So anyways, that is the main gist of the deck that I was playing. It was a lot of fun. I had a great time at the tournament. Took 5th place out of 9, which is typically I like to be in at least the top half, but in the top few. But you know what? I had a great time, and wasn't too worried about it. If I was really planning ahead, or like if I knew that I was going to the tournament further in advance, I would have hoped that I would have put a little more time and effort into making a deck that I thought was capable of winning a win-a-box tournament, because there was a lot on the line. But I really just went to have fun. I'm glad I was able to get the win in booster draft, which was quite a bit of fun. Fun fact about booster draft: we had 6 of us. We played 3 rounds. In those 3 rounds, I only rescued 8 lost souls, but only 1 lost soul was rescued against me. So it was a very defensive draft. I played Jeremy in round 1 again. We played in round 1 of Type 1 2-player as well. I was able to win that game 5-1. So Jeremy was the only one who rescued a lost soul against me in booster draft. I then played against Mark. I got a freebie on turn one, and then neither of us got a lost soul the rest of the game. So we got to the end, and we had locked each other out. I had Canaanites and I had the relatives lost souls, so I was basically just able to cycle one of Thebes or cycle Zebul and just convert their the hero, and then my offense was just not quite strong enough, or I didn't have quite enough offense to get through all the defense that Mark had. He did get pretty close to getting me with women as snares, but I had just enough defense left to just keep him locked out. And basically, I had to not attack by the end of the game, because if I did, then he could have blocked the women as snares, taken my defense, and then maybe been able to get through. So I kind of thought about, like, maybe I can wait till like the last turn and then try and attack. I think I had gone first, maybe, so he was going to get the last turn if I remember correctly, because I think I went first and got that freebie. Um, and so that probably wouldn't have worked, but I was just thinking I'm up one, and I don't think he's getting through. I was kind of just confident that my defense would be able to hold, and that was the case. So I got a 1-0 win against Mark, and then I played against Mitch, and it was sort of the same thing. I was able to get two this time against Mitch, but it was still like it was just a very similar, like, defensive battle, where it was just going back and forth, and I was using my good enhancements, but not at the right time or the right sequence to for them to actually go through. I maybe should have just waited and kind of built up an offense, or like built up an attack before each time I went in, because it just seemed like he always had an answer. But yeah, it was kind of the same sort of thing, but I was able to get two lost souls that time, and that was enough to or the full win and the two timeout wins were enough to for me to beat Mark in the head to head, because we had a tied game score, because he got two full wins and then the timeout loss against me. So we were tied for game score, and the head to head got me in first place. So booster draft, we did 3 Israel's Rebellion and 3 Israel's Inheritance packs, which was pretty fun. I enjoyed that, but it was hard to get a cohesive deck together, which I just felt like I was spread across so much, and that's kind of, I think, what hindered the offensive capabilities a little bit. And I think our packs were just a little bit D heavy in general. Like I think everybody kind of struggled with that to some degree. So that's part of why we had a lot of good defensive battles. So anyways, it was a really fun time, really fun weekend. We went to Buffalo Wild Wings afterwards, or some of us did who didn't have to leave right away, and just had some great fellowship and everything. So in some sense, I'm glad that it was a small group, because it just felt like it was more uh, close knit. I guess we could have a little bit tighter conversation, or you could get to actually spend time with each of the people there in more meaningful way. And so I think that was a blessing in one sense. But of course, with the tournaments like this, you hope for a big turnout. You want a lot of people to come and to play, and so as we go forward with, or as Jay and the sponsors of that tournament go forward with the future years, they might be thinking about, how do we get more people, or how do we adjust this to accommodate, just because traveling for a tournament is kind of tough. Some people might only be able to travel for nationals, if at all, and so it can be a lot to try to get a good turnout from multiple states and stuff. So that is I think pretty much all I have to say about the tournament this past weekend. It was a lot of fun. So next year I would very much suggest you try to make it kind of depending on how it looks. If it's the same win a box style, that would be awesome. But it's kind of all based on what's available, what they're able to do sponsorship wise, and that for the hosting for the tournament. So huge shout out to Jay and to Alexis for lending them out to us for the weekend, or at least the couple days, so that we could have a good time and play some redemption, have some good fellowship. So anyways, I've been going on for a while, so that's where we will wrap it up here, and we'll catch y'all next time.